So the final section of the language learning tripod is, of course, time. And it very much relates to your attitude and your attentiveness because, of course, the first thing that always comes forward to me when I think about the time you spend on Chinese, and especially when some of our past students have said they're having trouble finding time, is that there's one thing you want to always ask yourself. You don't have to learn Chinese, right? There's no rule saying you're a free person. You can do whatever you want. You can go learn skydiving if you want. So the first thing you need to do is establish that this matters to you and it is something that is worthy of your time. And if you think it's not, then I mean, like, hey, I will never judge anybody for choosing to do whatever they want to do with their life. But once you decide, no, I'm going to do it, I have the good attitude, I'm ready to pay attention to it, then that's one thing that really helps the time not feel so burdensome. But then the second thing is that there are lots of ways to make the time actually fun and not something that you feel like, oh, I got to do Chinese today. What a bummer. It's like, actually, it can be really, really enjoyable.
And part of that is having like guaranteed progress.
Yeah.
Right, which was tough for me. I came to China to learn Chinese and like, you know, I was willing to put more time in than average, even though I had awful methods and little, you know, results of my efforts. I was willing to put the time in because I was like, well, I'm here. I've moved to China. I better do it, right?
Yeah.
And I was really interested in it, even though despite my constant failures, but like I had a bit of a different story from everyone else. But like, you got to find that goal or a reason. You got to have like, and then that will help you put the time in.
100%, 100%. And, you know, it's really a lot about what you're doing with your day, right? So I love this quote. It's not that we don't have time, it's that we make poor use of it, because you think about all the time during the day that you could possibly fit in a little bit of Chinese. Because remember, there's sort of two main principles that you kind of want to always be thinking about. One is that something is better than nothing. So if you're sitting there in silence versus sitting there and there's a little bit of Chinese on in the background, even if you can't understand it, that's still better than nothing. Was
it the difference between 0 and 1 is infinite, right?
Yeah, it seems like not very much, but it's actually infinite. So it's like there's that, and then there's also you know, what can you do in any given moment? So you're sitting on the elevator and you got Anki on your phone, or you're standing on the elevator, sitting on the elevator, but you're standing in the elevator and you've got Anki on your phone. Why not just pull it out and do a card or two, right? Because that's better than nothing. Like doing a card or two, it reminds you of that, gets your brain back into contact with Chinese. It tells your brain, this matters to me. It's important to me. It's because, and that's why it connects back to attitude, right? So if you can find a way to do, say, an hour a day with Chinese, but it doesn't have to be an hour straight. I'm not saying like get up in the morning and spend a focused hour. It could be 5 minutes every hour for the 16 hours you're awake.
And arguably, that's even better.
It is better.
It's more effective.
Yeah, it's like Katsumoto says, it's like you boil water. If you let the water go entirely cold, then you have to boil it back up again. But if you boil water and then you just occasionally add a little bit of heat to it throughout the day, it stays very, very hot.
Yeah. So like, there's a couple of things that you could do immediately. Like even if you've got a full-time job, you've got kids, you know, and dogs or whatever, you've got these things taking up your time, you can find an hour a day. And if you can't find an hour a day, then you need to find 3. You need to, like, if you're traveling, you know, like that's one thing that will unlock it for a lot of people. Instead of looking at you know, social media while you're on the bus or the underground or whatever it is, you switch that to Anki. You switch that to something that is Chinese oriented. And there you go. That's 20 minutes, half an hour a day right there. Absolutely. For most people, right? Or more maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, gosh, the amount of time that people look at social media, if you could think of that as a trigger, like, oh, I'm going to go look at Facebook right now. Oh, how about instead I do 3 Anki cards or whatever? And
10 minutes at lunch at work.
Yeah.
Focused on that.
And also, don't worry about finishing things. Just start things. Just go, oh, yeah, I did a couple of flashcards there. And then, you know, what's going to happen is sometimes you're going to go, oh, I'll just do a flashcard or 2. And next thing you know, you've done 25 or you've done 50 because you got into a good state of mind. You start going with it. So, yeah, the time part of it. And I mean, by the way, you mentioned the thing about sometimes people have kids or whatever. One of our best students, John, he had 2 kids. For those super nice guy, super nice to his kids. While we were teaching him, he would, like, because we taught him online, his kids would be coming into the frame. He would just constantly be like, okay, I'm having a class. I love you. Like, so patient.
Why didn't my dad ever do that?
But the thing is, he moved faster than loads of our students who were like, didn't have any kids, and they were just like, well, I'm really busy. And it's
full-time job.
Yeah.
2 young boys, right? And, you know, his wife worked as well. And, you know, it was I'm sure he had a much busier life than either of me and you have got, right? And he found that time, and he was one of the quickest out of everyone. So that's amazing.
And so you always want to ask yourself, like, if you're really in the good frame of mind where you're like, I really want this, I do actually want this, then you can think to yourself in terms of, all right, well then in that case, how do I actually get this hour in? Where could I do it? I mean, it's worth thinking about for a little bit of like even if you just spent 5 minutes going tomorrow, where can I fit it in? Like, just look at your calendar and go like, tomorrow, where could I fit this in? And even if it's just like, I could fit it in probably between work and home or I'm going to go pick up the kids and I'll have to wait for my daughter to finish ballet class for 5 minutes, fit it in, and why not?
That's why these things are magic, right?
Yes.
Obviously everyone knows that, but like for learning languages, for learning Chinese, it's incredible because, like you say, say you are going to pick up your kids or you're going to wait somewhere and you're having to wait for 5 to 10, 15 minutes for something. Get out the phone, and everything you need for all different stages of your learning for Chinese is going to be at the touch of a button, less than an inch away from your body at all times. Right?
Exactly. You can literally get every aspect of what you need to learn in Chinese, every aspect of the reading, the listening, the speaking, the writing, all of it can be done on your phone in one way or another. And that's it's really amazing in that sense. So the fact that you're able to do that means that the time can accumulate throughout the day in ways that you maybe hadn't considered before. So that leads us to the final point, which is that these all play into each other, the attitude and the attentiveness and the time. If you have a good attitude about this and you're like, okay, it's my goal, I can see what I'm going to get out of this, I can think about when I learn Chinese, I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z things that matter to me and I want to do, and I'll be able to influence people positively in my life after I do this, and so your attitude becomes better. You want to pay attention. When you start paying attention, you're going to get the recognition of things that you've learned. Go, oh, I just recognized that first time. Oh,
that's going to give you a better attitude.
Exactly, gives you a better attitude, but also makes you go, well, I'm going to do it. I want to spend more time on this. There's this sort of point that everybody reaches. And sometimes the reason why people fail at Chinese is this point sometimes takes a few months to get to. And so they give up before they reach that point. But like you reach a point where you go, I'm too far in now. I got to continue now because I'm going to be able to do it. I can see the path now in front of me. And that's why we called it Mandarin Blueprint to begin with, was that we wanted just people to realize that you can do it. You just have to get to this point. A lot of people, before they get to that point, they kind of don't know what they're doing. They're lost. They start to have the bad attitude and they start to go, well, why should I even bother paying attention to this? And, I'm spending all my time on this. I could be spending my time on another thing that's going to make that I'm not crap at or whatever. And so it can go both ways. You can go into a cyclical, vicious cycle as well. But if you get into that positive cycle, it's just going to take off. It's really, really great.